Hello, you are watching the Supply Chain Digital Show, brought to you by Supply Chain Digital Magazine, Procurement Magazine, and BizClick. My name is Ilkan Osavim, and I'm editor of Procurement Magazine. In this show, we bring you all the latest news, analysis, and opinions from the world of supply chain right here on LinkedIn, YouTube, and other digital platforms. My usual co-host, Supply Chain Digital Editor Sean Ashcroft, can't be with us today. But in his place, I'm delighted to introduce Helen Adams, one-time contributor to Supply Chain and currently editor of Manufacturing and Health magazine. Welcome, Helen.
Hi, Ilkan.
How are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you. I've had some hummus and a salad for lunch.
Perfect. Sounds like a great start. And just to say that again, I did say it was Health magazine. It is Healthcare magazine.
Digital.
Yeah. And we begin with a typo straight away, so forgive us for that. Now, just a quick reminder at this point for all of you watching, please do reach out to the comment section underneath the show. And if you haven't already, you can also vote in our LinkedIn poll. On which note, Helen, what is our poll this week? Let them know, please.
Our poll this week is: a BDO report suggests consumers are tired of supply chain excuses and that they simply want their goods. As a consumer, how do you react to supply problems? A, immediately switch brands. B, switch after repeated delays. Or C, stay loyal to your favorite brands. What are your thoughts on that, Ilkan? How much patience do you have?
It's a difficult one, to be honest, because there is a part of me that's just like, I want it and I want it now, bring it to me. But at the same time, I do suffer from the fact that I'm, editor-in-chief of Procurement Magazine, which means that there's that kind of the hindrance of a slightly wider view. And, we just basically have to take into consideration that there are major issues which are affecting supply chains as well as procurement. And for that reason, I think I can show just a little bit more patience if I'm able to step out of myself. That's our poll. And just for now, we're onto the news. Stay tuned. Perfect. And not the news, that was the graphic. It was the news graphic. Forgive me. Okay, so all going swimmingly so far. So Helen, why don't you kick us off, please?
Sure, thank you, Ilkan. I'd like to chat about my supply chain piece posted on the Manufacturing Digital website. This looked at how the earthquake in Turkey and Syria earlier this month has affected supply chains globally. So we're all aware of the dreadful human cost of the massive quake. The most recent casualties estimate there is an almost unimaginable 42,000 deaths. And then, of course, there's the welfare of the survivors, many of whom are injured and homeless. But as with any natural disaster, there is also a big cost to business, especially in terms of supply chain distributions. Unlike Syria, whose infrastructure has been devastated by 12 years of war, the impact of the quake in Turkey is causing another round of supply chain disruptions due to damaged ports, bridges, and roads, as well as to factories. Using specialist mapping technology, global supply chain risk management company Resilink has shared some eye-watering data around this. For example, Turkey's automotive manufacturing industry is worth US $23 billion in exports, and this includes Renault and Fiat models. Its machine engineering sector is worth 13 billion, and it also has an electrical equipment manufacturing industry worth 8 billion. Resilink estimates that around 900 commercial sites have been impacted by the quake. This, it says, will impact manufacturing, assembly, warehousing, and distribution. The most severely impacted industries are automotive and general manufacturing. Resilink suggests that the recovery time for these sectors could be up to 8 months. All told, not great news for an already overworked supply chain chiefs and their teams. But moving on from supply chain to procurement, what caught your eye in February, Ilkan?
Perfect. Thank you, Helen. Well, I'd like to discuss a story that I covered in Procurement Magazine entitled India's Rag Pickers, an Insight into Circular Economies, which takes its cue from the plastics problem. Starting off with some statistics, the piece draws attention to the fact that the rate of plastic usage and disposal means that half of all plastics ever manufactured have been produced in less than the last 20 years. And that this exponential increase in production went from just 2.3 million tons in 1950 to a whopping 448 million tons by 2015. And the production is expected to double by the year 2050. In this article, India recently came into the spotlight on the plastics issue when Plast India Foundation President Jigish Doshi said that a ban on plastics is actually not the solution to the plastics conundrum, moving against the common intuition that an all-out ban surely must be the only viable answer. Doshi reveals that the true key to solving the plastics issue was effective waste management solutions and proper recycling, appearing as an advocate of a circular economy that unequivocally includes plastics in its structure. In India, there's a large segment of people who make their living by recycling waste, known as rag pickers. In New Delhi alone, there are 300,000 rag pickers, with another 300,000 in Mumbai, of whom controversially 120,000 are under the age of 14. The article points out that despite this, rag pickers are an integral part of India's culture. Momentarily suspending our ethical judgments of the situation, it should be recognized that rag pickers exist in India, just as rag and bone men did in the United Kingdom until the latter half of the 20th century. Rag and bone men also played an important role in recycling in the West and were effectively a microcosm of proto-circular economies. Doshi says the problem is that the rag pickers don't have the technology or are not incentivized enough to collect small plastic waste, such as straws and so forth. Therefore, the need of the hour is a waste management solution and recycling technology that ensures proper collection and recycling of plastic waste. Essentially, any attempt at elimination of plastics would be to effectively plunge already impoverished rag pickers into a far worse financial position and cut off the artery whereby they earn a living. So I thought that was quite interesting and worth covering. So back to you, Helen.
Thank you, Ilkan. We're going to cut to our ad break now. See you in a moment.
How procurement can be sped up and require less staff is on everyone's mind. I think it's more about having the right processes in place before jumping to a system. I'm Suki Becker. I'm Vice President of Procurement and Real Estate at GfK. We're a market research company and we help our clients solve critical business questions in their decision-making process around consumers, markets, brands and media. We've measured our carbon footprint and understood where the emissions are coming from. With hybrid working, we've been able to reduce our site footprint, which has significantly helped us in reducing our emissions. We're now working on reduction measures as well as carbon offsetting, and we intend to become carbon neutral by the end of 2025. I looked at standardising roles and responsibilities across the procurement and facilities team. I created a category structure for procurement and changed the roles of the regional heads to make them not only responsible for procurement, but also real estate and facilities. One of the things that I've done at GfK was to look at the processes and deliverables of procurement at GfK, regardless of the system used. Standardising and stabilising the processes was much more important than the system that are used.
Perfect. Welcome back. I am having some technical issues with the comments section, but keep them coming in and we'll take a look at them a little bit later. And so now on to the latest issues of Supply Chain Digital and Procurement magazines. Let's take a look at some of the engaging and insightful comments on offer. And Helen, why don't you start us off? Is there a feature in supply chain that you'd like to discuss?
Yes, I'd like to take a look at one of our regular top 10 features, which we don't often talk about. This one is a list of top third-party logistics providers, or 3PLs, as most people call them. It's not really the order of the list I want to discuss, but rather the importance to the supply chain of 3PLs in today's tumultuous and unpredictable world. 3PL providers have a critical role to play here because they're often able to see disruptions early, particularly with regard to logistics routes. This is why 3PLs are well placed to assess the degree to which disruptive events will impact a company's ability to deliver products on time. On that note, let's revisit the earthquake in Turkey and Syria. A well-placed 3PL will have more up-to-date information of the impact on logistics of that quake than any other type of organization. And this is what makes outsourced logistics such a strategic asset. But it's not just natural disasters and extreme weather that 3PLs can provide real-time data around. There is also the ongoing issue of acute shortages of both labor and warehouses. More than any organization, 3PLs have unsurpassed access to resources that can be shared across operations. And this also makes their services strategically important to business. But just for the record, regarding the list, Deutsche Post DHL Group came top with revenues of $84 billion. So Ilkan, what content would you like to discuss from February Procurement magazine?
Thank you, Helen. So the article I'd like to discuss is headlined Procurement Teams Under Pressure, How to Avoid Meltdown. For this piece, I interviewed Dr. Howard Price, Head of Procurement Content at Skill Dynamics, who, I quote, "We're now seeing cost inflation overtaking supply shortages as the biggest single cause of concern in procurement, although supply availability is still a problem for many." He says, as a result, procurement professionals are taking a battery, juggling a wider range of challenges than ever. We've also seen that some experts say that significant procurement people are leaving the profession altogether, that a significant amount of procurement people are leaving the profession altogether, which is something that we've heard about before. And we've heard about this and been seeing the stats, which do not look good at all. Essentially, there is a snowballing effect brought about by both supply chain disruptions and economic impacts, which are increasingly putting a major strain on procurement professionals, so much so that there's a kind of de-emphasized exodus of professionals out of the procurement industry. Dr. Price points out that researchers highlighted the 5 main causes of burnout as an unreasonable high workload, lack of control over work patterns, always being on call, unfair treatment by managers, and lack of social support. But despite all the external factors that are putting pressures on procurement professionals, Dr. Price says it's never easy to recognize that you might be a part of the problem. But research suggests that the company is often the major cause of burnout. Again, a difficult thing to accept, and something for organizations to chew over, and if we're lucky, to swallow, perhaps. So, on to you, Helen.
Thank you, Ilkan. So on to the poll. Here's a quick reminder of the poll question. A BDO report suggests consumers are tired of supply chain excuses and that they simply want their goods. As a consumer, how do you react to supply chain problems? And the results, Ilkan?
Okay, so we have 12% said immediately switch brands, 17% said stay loyal to favorite brands, and 71% said switch after repeated delays, which essentially shows that customer loyalties are only operative up to a certain point, I guess. And so what do you make of that, Helen? What would your answer have been?
I think I would have gone with the majority. I like to go with a company that I know a bit about. But if repeated delays, if they just keep happening, I'm going to get frustrated and go elsewhere. Right.
Okay, that's fair enough. I think that there's a breaking point for all of us as consumers, to be honest with you. Okay, folks, I mean, that's all we've actually got time for in this episode. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Thank you for interacting with us if watching live and for taking part in the poll. Remember, this show is available to watch on demand. So please do share with colleagues and anyone interested in supply chain and procurement. Also, a big thank you to Ernie and the rest of the video production team. Andy and the design team for the great looking magazines, and Kaylee and the marketing team. This has been a BizClick production. We'll be with you the same time on the last Thursday of every month, so make a note and do join us for our next episode on the 30th of March. And see you next time.